There we go. Welcome to episode number 31 of School of Performance with Simon Pelland. Excited for this one. It's been a minute. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Excited to be here.
It's good to see you, man. It's been a minute. It's always great kind of catching up, beyond this podcast and the episode and everything. It's just great catching up with old friends and it's fun. It's fun seeing you, man. How you been? How are you?
Yeah, we got battles on the hardwood that go way back.
No doubt. No doubt.
I miss it.
Cool.
I miss it, man.
What's
I know you
that?
still play. I said I miss it. I know you still play, which is, fortunate for you. But I tell you, if I knew some of those games were going to be the last few games, I probably would have played a little harder. Just soaked it in. Maybe looked around. Maybe looked around a little more and paid attention a little bit.
Took in the moment.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yes. Sometimes you look back and you don't realize like this isn't gonna last forever. Like there's gonna be a day where I don't get to get on this court anymore. And it's wild. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the relationships, right? I know you and I were going to talk about relationships. I'm a relationship coach, but it's we did a 10-year reunion with our college team a few years ago. Was it a 10-year reunion? No, it wasn't have been that long. I don't know. I feel like we're not that old yet, but it was some reunion. And excuse me, got a bit of a cold here, so I apologize if I cough a little bit.
It's all good.
We did this reunion. We got to play. We played like a game of 5-on-5, and we were about to finish, but there was a bit more time left in the gym. And one of the guys was like, "Oh, let's get to the meal or whatever." And I said, "Guys, you realize this is the last time this group of people will ever play basketball for the rest of our lives together. Let's go to the last second that we have." And we did, and it was so awesome. And just knowing that was the truth too, knowing that was the end,
That's so cool. Just taking those last few moments. That's cool, man. we have a personal history and I've known you for years, but for those that are joining us now and for those that will listen in the future, tell us a little bit about who is Simon.
Yeah, who is Simon? Simon is a guy highly interested in love and squeezing the juice out of life. I'm a relationship coach right now. I'm constantly looking for new ways to live. I live in Bali right now and with my fiance, and such a weird question to answer. Who are you?
Right. I like to phrase it that way.
I'm a Huntington's disease advocate. I'm fascinated with how we can be courageous and how we can have what we want with ease. That fascinates me. How we can have what we want with ease. Yeah.
That's awesome, man.
That's how I spend most of my time, I think. I think that's mainly what I focus on. How can I have what I want with ease? I think I spend a lot of time on that.
That's awesome. That's cool. And we talked about a little bit. We had our little call to set everything up beforehand, and we started delving into this feeling of like sometimes there's this human need for things to be hard, and like we start looking for conflicts and we start thinking like this shouldn't be this easy, like as if like something's about to go wrong, or we think like maybe I'm doing something wrong because everything shouldn't go so smooth, like that survival mechanism of like something needs to go astray here.
Yeah. I mean, don't we all have that experience in relationships? Haven't we all had that where maybe we wanted the girl or the guy and then we got the girl or the guy and then it was all going so well. And then we're kind of like waiting for the other shoe to drop. We're waiting to find out something terrible about them, or we're waiting for us to mess this up somehow because it can't be this good, And I think we've all grown up with that just from school and relationships and parents teaching us everything is hard. Good things come with hard work. The harder you suffer, the better your reward is later, all that bullshit. I mean, I don't believe in that. Some people do. I don't believe in it, but it's a weird thing. I think it triggers our self-sabotage. I mean, I'm living a life right now that I dreamed of just a few short years ago. And sometimes I'm out there, having amazing coaching calls, or I'm playing golf in this beautiful Bali weather. And I'm like, maybe I don't deserve this.
Mm.
It's like, and I believe the universe has a way of listening to you. Okay, well, if you say you don't deserve it, I'm going to snatch that away from you somehow.
Right.
So to me, the exercise is like, oh, can you let yourself feel good? What if it doesn't come with a tax? What if you can
Right.
actually let yourself enjoy it? And it can come. What if it could come easy and you could enjoy it? Isn't that better for you and for everyone who's associated with you too? But it's a hard thing to grapple with if we've spent, 2 decades of our life, 3 decades, 5 decades, you name it,
Right.
of this relationship that good things have to be hard.
That perspective, that mentality, that survival.
Yeah,
That's
it's
really
trained, right? It's a train. Like we're all, I think, just a result of our experiences, And so if we're not paying attention to what those experiences were, it's hard to disrupt them. They become patterns, and then that's just how life is, according to our point of view. But perhaps there's another way, and that's what I'm. If I could describe Simon, that's pretty much where I'm at all the time these days. Is what's the other way?
That's cool. That disruption, man. I like that.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I'd love to hear a little bit about how you got into this world of coaching and relationship coaching. What brought you into it?
Yeah, so right now I work with a lot of people who are single and looking for a relationship. I work for some people who are married and looking to strengthen their relationship. I work with some people who are trying to decide whether or not they should break up. So big focus on relationships, but I also filter that into relationships with everything, relationships to ourselves, relationships to money, relationships to our colleagues and how we communicate and negotiate our position and our roles. So how I got into it was I've been doing personal development for about 10 years. I've been taking courses. I've been getting coached by a number of different coaches in different areas. And I struggled a lot with relationships. I struggled. I found myself, getting in these relationships, falling in love, and then something would mess them up and I didn't get it. And then I'd try to fix it and then I wouldn't fix it. And then I'd drive myself crazy. I think there's something wrong with me. And I would just go through this whole brutal experience until I found love again. And then it was rinse and repeat. So then I was like, there's got to be another way. And a big, hard pill to swallow for me in that was that I was the common denominator in all my relationships. I didn't really want to look in that mirror. And so that's when I started getting coaching myself on the specific area of relationships. And then when I saw that could be a career, I was like, I would love to do that. I mean, I'm fascinated by the topic and I'm now experiencing these breakthroughs myself. Perhaps I have something to offer in this field. And that's kind of what birthed it.
That's awesome, man. And how long have you been doing it now?
And I would still call it pretty young, but I've been doing it for 3 years, and it picked up pretty quick once it got going, which is cool. I've worked with over 100 people in a kind of a long-term setting. I don't work with anyone for less than 3 months.
That's huge.
So it's all, it's very important. Some people say like, hey, can I get a session or here? And I'm like, I don't do a session because I can't promise you really any results in a session. It's kind of like saying, can I get one personal training session? And I'm going to be, super fit next week. It's like, well, you won't, but, and I'm committed to the big results. So that's all I've been doing for 3 years now. That's
huge. That's cool. Yeah, sometimes we expect these like long-term results from a single session or a single practice or a single game or whatever it may be, a single lesson. But it doesn't quite work out that way. You got to put in the work. You got to do. I always tell the people I have the privilege to work with is the work is done between the meetings. Like that's where the homework.
It is. I completely agree with you there. And the first bit's just an element of developing trust, right?
Right.
You're in performance coaching. Well, often how we have to elevate our performance is by acknowledging where we're not performing. That can be uncomfortable, right? I want to boast. I want to brag. Oh, wait, here's this area that I'm ignoring, that I'm not even looking at, that I'm maybe even ashamed of. And I'm going to tell that to another person. That takes courage, right? So I think the beginning stage is all about like building that trust, especially in relationships where people are talking to me about heartbreak and vulnerabilities. It's no small thing, and I feel a huge privilege, much like it sounds like you do, when people give us that trust.
For sure. I'd love, like, I can say this running with this right away and getting deep into it. I do want a little bit take a moment beforehand to reminisce a little bit. I think it's always fun. And, yeah, man. And I know your college days and everything. That was a UBCO that you did the reunion game?
Yeah, it was that team. It was from our
national team?
provincial championship. When we won the provincial championship. Yeah, that was what it was. It was the 10 years from that. That's what it was.
That's awesome. And I guess I would just take it to like, what are your favorite moments come up for you on the court throughout all your playing career? Would it be high school, college, even pickup games? Who knows? Like, what stands out?
Wow. Oh, that's tough. Well, the first thing that popped in my mind was actually, we'll just see who your audience is. My college coach. What stood out for me was the first time I stood up to him was in my 5th year, the beginning of my 5th year. I was a kind of player that was very coachable. I would do exactly what was asked of me, but almost to a fault. Because it stifled my creativity, it stifled the flow that I could potentially offer. I was more like, what do you need me to do? What do you mean? I'll do that. And so I think it put a ceiling on me. And it wasn't until my 5th year that my coach and I and the whole team, we were warming up for like a preseason game, and we were talking about the plays. And I was really committed to my last year. I'm going to learn every play of every position, and I'm going to get it all dialed in. And we're walking through some plays. And the coach goes, okay, when this happens, you go there and then you go there. And I'm like, no, that's not what happens. I go here and then he goes there. And the coach was like, no, that's wrong. And we're like arguing in front of everybody, right? And then you could see it finally clicked. And he's like, oh, yeah, Simon, you're right. And in that moment, I was like, maybe I'm better than I think I am. And it shifted my confidence instantly in that moment. This is why performance coaching is so important. Because I think it's so much more of a mental game than a physical game. We're all athletes. And to be honest, it doesn't really matter if you can jump 6 inches higher than another guy or not. If you can get this in tune, you can do things that someone who's athletic isn't even aware of. And so when I got that, my scoring average doubled. I was playing at a whole new level. I was like, I had this confidence about myself. So that moment was a big, big moment for me. And I think why your profession is so important is that moment for me happened by accident, whereas what you're doing actually creates a structure for that to happen on purpose. So
that's
that one clicks.
That's cool that even with ball, it kind of delves back into this relationship with ourselves and those same concepts that are so fascinating to you.
Upstairs, that's where I'm so interested in. And another one would be like we were playing again in the 3-on-3 tournament in Kelowna. Do you remember that? Center of Gravity. Did you ever play
right. Yeah, for sure.
We were playing in that. We had a decent team, and we're playing 3-on-3 against what's his name? Billy McNutt. Do you remember him?
I guess
he was the All-Canadian.
Yeah.
He played for Douglas, and then when Douglas won the championship.
Okay.
And he wasn't paying attention on some play, and I turned around and I dunked on him. And then his teammate was like, oh shit, you just dunked on an All-Canadian, man. And I was trying to play it cool and all that. I was trying to play, no big deal. But in my head, I was like, that's fucking crazy.
That's you.
So that for some reason that popped in.
That's hype.
Too. I think he wasn't paying attention. I think I caught him sneaking,
You caught him slipping, man. You got to be on your game. You want to be called an All-Canadian. You can't be caught slipping.
Yeah, I got lucky. I don't think that would happen too often.
That's hilarious. That's what I love about that question, because it could be from like a high school games. It's never like this championship game like what we would think. It's always like these little things that somehow stand above the rest that just have like this special meaning to us. And I really love that story with your coach, because there's so many elements in there about like standing up for what we believe in, like becoming aware of what we're capable of, becoming aware of what we have to give, what we can give this team, I can totally relate to, being like I wouldn't call it a yes man, but sort of like a yes coach type of guy. Like whatever you need of me, I'm here because I'm team oriented and I want to win, man. I'm competitive and I want to win. But I love the way that's a great highlight. That's a great thing to look back on, that moment where we realize that like by not putting our best version out there, whatever we're most capable of, we're actually doing a team a disservice. Like when we're so trying to do what do they need of us and what the coach needs of us, like you said, we're not in a state of flow. We're not bringing ourselves into fruition. We're not bringing all of our capabilities onto the floor, onto the court. It could be in business, it could be in relationships, whatever it may be. We're kind of putting a stop to ourselves, and then we're not, giving that relationship or that team or that business the most that we can. So it's like counterintuitive, and I love the way you said it. That's cool.
And I think you nailed it as well, right? It's like, I think we all have these tools, these skills that are locked up inside of us. They're there, but they're just hidden behind some stuff, and for me, that's what was the key. That turned that key for me. But I think also in what you're doing, especially if you're working with kids, there are so many kids that are like deer in the headlights, looking at their parents, looking at their coaches, mainly being yelled at all the time. And they just need a bit of confidence. They need a bit of encouragement. There might be some such a natural creative ability in some of these kids, but they're like scared to let it out because they're so rigid, So I think it's so great what you're doing. I really believe in that at every age too.
Right. That's awesome. Yeah. I appreciate it. It just brings up this joy, because I think we felt it on the other side too. I think our automatic, especially as athletes, but I would believe that in every area of life, in business and relationships, our automatic is like, what can we do better? Like, what did I do wrong and how can I improve it? But we forget to look at everything we did well. That's one of the things that's been most surprising to me. I think even after having experienced it as an athlete myself, the amount of times I'll sit across from one of my clients and they'll just right away shoot off like 20 things that they need to do better. But you ask them one thing that they did well during that game, and that takes a toll. And that's an amazing thing to observe, like our human nature and how we can dwell on everything we need to improve. And sometimes we forget everything we did well so quickly.
And then that goes into, well, where's our momentum going? It's important to look at, where we can improve, but do we want all our momentum to flow into that? Or do we want some of our momentum to flow into what we're great at? That's why my coaching calls, the first thing we start off is wins, because that feels, you create less resistance. Oh, I want to go more in that direction. But some people don't even feel like they're winning, but they are. We are all winning in lots of different areas of our life, but we're constantly maybe feeling not good enough. So our eyes go to where we're not. And that's not, the funny thing is we think that's helping. I don't think it is. I think it helps in doses, but we need some more of this. We need some more pats on the back, some encouragement, and to recognize, oh, I got something to offer. I am interesting. I am unique. Oh, okay. Let's spend some more time there. And then all of a sudden you feel good about yourself. And when you feel good about yourself, more good things happen. Next thing you know, momentum. Right?
That's awesome. I like that.
Yeah.
That's good. If we kind of let's just jump in with relationships, the first thing I have to kind of give us a little baseline is what should we even look for in a relationship? Like, how do we define that part of what we should aim for? Like, I know, like kind of building it with ourselves. Like what do we want out there? You know what I mean? How do we get to that point within ourselves where we're really clear on what we want in a potential partner?
Yeah. So the very first thing I do with people is we describe what we want. And for many people, sharing what we want can be difficult. We're often much better at sharing what we don't want. We can look at our past and we see all those things that we didn't like, that person that was too needy or that person that was, too avoidant. And we go, oh, I just don't want someone like that. And then I go, what do you want? Well, I don't want someone like this. And I said, yeah, but what do you want? And so often what I do is I tell people to use what they don't want as a signifier for what they do want. So someone says, I don't want to be in a relationship that's exhausting. And I say, okay, well, what's the opposite of that? And then they go, energizing. I say, great. So you want to be in a relationship that's energizing? They go, yeah, but they might have never said that their whole life because they're too busy saying not that. So I really coach people to say what they want and not what they don't want, but use what they don't want to help clarify it. So sometimes we'll write all these things you don't want. Okay, I don't want someone who is unemployed, or I don't want someone who is not close with their family. Okay, so you want someone who likes what they do, who's close with their family in an energizing relationship. Yeah,
Right.
yeah, that feels good. That feels good. Okay, great. Now it's starting to take shape, but it's
Right.
not so obvious. And this is why I think coaching is so valuable, is to just kind of like guide the ship a little bit. Pick out a few things here. Well, let's go that way. Let's go that way. Yeah. Okay, I see something there. You know. So that's really how I do it with people. And then once we've created, okay, I want to be with someone who's energized. I'm just using this example. It could be so many different things, right? Someone who's in an energizing relationship with someone who loves what they do, and we have a lot of fun and adventure together. Okay, great. Now my question is, what kind of person would want to be with that person? Who would attract that kind of person? And then you go, well, probably someone who's, maybe being courageous, maybe someone who's being fun and being interesting and, alive and also energizing themselves. And I go, okay, great. So that's our work. Our work is to be that. And the rest is just going to happen. I promise you. And it has so many times. I had a client who had a baby yesterday. He started with me over a year ago to go, I want to start a family. And it's like the how. I coach a lot of people on like letting the how reveal itself. You don't have to know how to do something you've never done before. You can discover it along the way. And so once we do that whole, okay, this is who I'm going to be. I'm going to be that person. Then we look at those areas like you were talking about. Where am I not being that? Where am I not being energized? Oh, wait, maybe it's because I keep neglecting that self-care because I'm scared to say no. I don't want to say no to something. So then I feel depleted and now I don't have energy. And then I go on a date feeling discouraged. Well, I promise you that's not going to be a long date. The person's going to want to go home pretty quick.
Right.
So that's kind of how we like unfold it.
That's cool, man. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love how in the beginning too, like that whole state of mind, and it's human nature to right away think about what we don't want, and our brain doesn't know it. Right. Like our past leads us to this, and our brain doesn't know how to differentiate. Like if I was to tell you right now, don't think about pink elephants, the first thing that will pop into your mind, my mind, and everyone, right, that's listening or watching would be exactly what I said, not to think about. Our brain doesn't know how to differentiate. So if we constantly think about what we don't want, we're actually, without even realizing, creating that. And I love that part of what you said right at the beginning. Like, and if we're not aware of that, it's just going to keep going, right? It's human nature. That's our automatic functioning. If we don't put, like you said before, what was the word you used? Like, when you're talking about ball, like it put a little stick in the wheel right now. You used a great word in English. I haven't spoken English, so I think I'm doing pretty well right now. No, I'm just joking. But just to put kind of like a pause in that automatic conditioning, that automatic functioning, and all of a sudden now you're being aware, like, okay, I'm doing this all the time. Like what I don't want, no. Okay, let's switch streams. Like, what do I want? And now you can start building. Now you can start creating, and that's so awesome that that's how you guys start off, and it's so important.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we touched on you just said it as far as our relationship with ourselves, like within the relationship, like what are we willing to accept? What our self-care, you called it, and that's the next thing I have on here is that self-worth. Like, how do we define that self-worth within the relationships and become really clear on that?
Yeah, well, if we end up in relationships that we end up not liking, that don't feel good, maybe they feel good in the beginning, but then they feel like you're getting the short end of the stick, or you feel like you're not loved the way you thought you would be. My desire is to always go, okay, well, if I'm in a relationship where I don't feel like I'm getting what I want, and I'm staying in that relationship, then that means I think I deserve that. I actually think I don't deserve any better. Because if I did deserve better, I would walk away from that relationship. But there's something that's keeping me there. And so what I encourage people to look at is, where am I not letting myself be treated well? Where am I not treating myself in a way that I deserve to be treated? In a way that I've decided, okay, this is what I want. This is what I deserve to have. And so if we can notice that in like our daily lives, how often do I let myself do something that's just for fun? How often do I let myself really enjoy a good meal? How often do I treat myself to a gift that I want? How often do I just laugh, and watch a comedy show without feeling guilty that I'm procrastinating about some project? It's like, I think we all can improve on our ability to have some joy, because when we do that, suddenly that kind of changes the expectation of what life should be like. We don't tolerate the suffering so much. We don't go, okay, yeah, okay, that guy, he's treated me poorly like 6 times, but I think on the 8th it's gonna turn. It's like, well, if you were like already treating yourself amazing on session 1, you'd be like, yeah, not for me. See ya.
Right. You'd have a sort of, it sounds like you'd have a sort of something to compare to, some sort of value to go about, to go, what's the word? To go from, to come from. And then you'd realize right away, like, this is for me, this isn't for me.
Right. But if we're not used to treating ourselves really well, and I mean really well, like that's what I think we all need to get better at, treating ourselves really well. That includes how we talk to each other. How we talk to ourselves. That includes like the time I spend on the things that I like doing that I'm putting off, like learning the guitar or playing golf or basketball or whatever it is for people. Some people don't even know what they like to do anymore. They spend so much time doing things they don't like. It's like, if I had a bunch of free time, what would I do with it? I'd probably just rest. It's like, well, you probably like to, if you're just resting, well, let's find some things that are energizing,
Right.
But that takes practice. It doesn't happen right away. I've got tons of compassion for people who don't see that right now, because you're just out of practice. We're just out of practice.
Right. I love that question. I use that a lot. Like, what if you could have whatever you want, what's a thing that you do that you can do for hours that you don't look at the clock? I kind of phrase it a little bit in Hebrew, but the time just goes, and you're not trying to finish it. You're not looking at the clock like, when am I done and I can go home, or where can I be? And you're just there. You're just present. It's just you in action doing this thing that you love, that you may not even realize that you love. You just do it. But if you look back at it, like, man, like that touches some deep part of you, some part of your soul, that you can just do that thing for hours. And like you said, some of us, and it's completely human, to just end up doing things that we need for money, or that we need for relationships, or that we need for friends, or our children, or our pets, or whatever it may be, our
obligations,
neighbors, right?
Obligations. Suddenly life becomes a list of obligations, and the obligations are not fun.
Right.
It's not fun. Relationships built off obligation are not fun. That is the number one killer of romance. If I feel obligated to kiss you, obligated to do something for you sexually, obligated to take you out on a date, that's gonna be a shitty date. It's like that's where joy. Those like obligation and joy are like opposites.
Right.
But again, anyone listening, it's okay if you're not there, because it takes warming up to. You just gotta. I think it's important to remember what we've been practicing. I like to use exercise a lot as analogies, like people going like, okay, I'm going to live a life of joy. Okay, well, let's assume joy is the weakest muscle in your body. Okay. And your strongest muscle is like obligations. Okay. So you're going to go to the gym and you're going to exercise joy. You're going to suck at it. You're going to fumble and fall and trip, and you won't know what you're doing, and you're going to be judging yourself and all that. So that's okay. That's part of the deal. Don't assume you're going to be as good at it like all those other great muscles. And from there, we can develop something. Otherwise, people get discouraged really easily. Like, it's how you go out there and you're like, I suck at this. Right. Never mind. Screw it. I'm going to go back to what I know.
Right. That automatic. That's a huge point to like coming in. And we talked about that courage to take on this conversation and this work with ourselves, and knowing that coming in, that it's not going to be an overnight success. I think a lot of us expect things to kind of come right away and all that, and be willing to put in the work and enjoying the process, like loving, coming to love that work, because the other side is so amazing, right? And we all know, we've all experienced it in spurts. the joy and that freedom that comes from the other side. And I love what you said before. We were talking between us before we went on live about this work that we do. You've done it longer. That it's not, a lot of people say like it's really hard work. Like it's not hard work, it's scary work. It takes something from a person to constantly be in this conversation, to constantly be looking like, where can I improve? Where can I change my perspective? Where can I delve deeper into myself and look at things that maybe I don't want to look at? But I know that on the other side of that is this great freedom and this great connection to exactly what you felt that day, UBCO, with your coach, about putting myself out there more, being more me in every area of my life, whatever it may be that I choose to look at, and then putting myself out there more, being in a flow state or whatever you want to call it, and really putting myself, the best version of me out there that I can be for other people, for the world, for myself, for my family. And that's an amazing life to live. I think we're both lit up just thinking about like that greatest version that we can put out there.
Yeah, it's risky. It's scary. It is scary. And things that, we're all scared of now, in 2 years, we might be like breathing to us. I remember the first time I got on a phone call for a coaching call, and I was so nervous. I was sweating, and I was like, oh my God, this is really happening. Like, what if I suck and all this kind of stuff? Now I can get on the phone like it's breathing. That's just something I'm used to now. So we get to change that through courage. But I think the myth is that trying to mitigate risk. I think there's going to be risk. If you want to feel alive, you're going to need to take risks. If you want to feel excited, a risk is going to be involved. And don't bother trying to be fearless. Instead, just recognize that you're going to be afraid. And that's okay. Like, I want to normalize being afraid. I actually want to normalize that so much. Like being afraid in relationships. Hey, honey, I'm going to bring up this topic that I haven't talked about for 3 months, but I've been thinking about, but I'm so nervous to tell you, because if I tell you, I'm scared you're going to judge me or hate me or leave me or whatever. It's like, okay, let's have that conversation. Let's not try to fix it and make it perfect and tie it in a little bow. I'm scared. Honey, I'm scared. Okay, thank you for telling me. I'm going to be here for you, because that's what we do when we're scared. We're family and we love each other. Rather than I'm going to perfect it. And I'm going to come up with the perfect words to say it's like, you never will. First of all, you won't. You're never having that conversation. So
what should it look like? Like starting, right? I love that. Like start building up this version in our minds of what it should look like and how it should be, and everything that should be said, and the perfect timing and the perfect sentencing and the perfect phrasing. But at the end of the day, it's just communication.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by communication. That's another area that I'm really interested in.
We'll do our next episode on that. We'll delve into that. We touched along the way on this word suffering. Like, I'd love to delve deeper into that. Like, how do you define that suffering within relationships, and how can we be better at avoiding that? Or like we said, the double negative before, not avoiding, but creating something different. Like, where should we put the energy to not deal with that suffering, but be dealing with creation and love and romance?
Yeah, I think this is something I've been really taking on in my own life for a number of years now, because I had it in my mind that you need to suffer for good things. I think I grew up with that mentality. If you want something great, there's going to be a bunch of suffering before that. Problem with that is, I think I related that sometimes to relationships. So I might be suffering in a relationship, waiting for the good part to start. Well, how long does one wait? Do you wait 20 years in a marriage and suddenly get divorced and you go, okay, yeah, I guess maybe I don't have to suffer so much, So I'm really fascinated with transforming that relationship with suffering, with pain. And it doesn't have to be physical. It's just this idea that I have to pay some evil price to have what I want. I think the price you have to pay is what we were talking about before. You're going to be scared.
Right.
That's the price. But you don't have to suffer if you acknowledge it. If we resist fear, that's where the suffering comes in. If I resist saying what I want to say to that coach, then I'm going to suffer. Like I did for 4 years before that. I did suffer playing. I was like tired, exhausted. I was trying so hard. I never felt good enough. And in a moment, suddenly I did. Suddenly I felt good enough. It's like, that's amazing. And so for me, it's like, where else are we doing that in our lives? Where else am I doing that in my life? Where else are all my clients doing that in their lives? Where we're punishing ourselves because we feel like this punishment is going to draw blood from this stone somehow. And so I'm going to keep going. It's like, maybe not.
Right.
Maybe there's something else going on. So yeah, I think it's everywhere, really. You know, even in like sleep, like I used to think I was a bad person for sleeping 8 hours or 9 hours a day. That's like a bad thing. You're lazy. And then I heard Ray Lewis, the NFL player, sleep 14 hours a day when he was playing to keep his long career. Wow. And then I heard Elon Musk say that there's a certain degree where if you sleep too short, you actually reduce your mental capacity. And because I got way into that whole sleep less, work harder, all that fucking nonsense, which I don't believe at all anymore.
Sleep when we die.
Yes, and it's like, fuck that, man. It's all about treating yourself good, you know, letting yourself, I'm allowed to sleep 8 or 9 hours a day. You know, I'm allowed to have my work be enjoyable. You know, it's like, oh yes, let's see more of that. And then we get familiarized with it. That's really, I think, the relation. It's a practice though. It might be something as small as like, oh, I'm going to just start making my bed.
That's what I was going to say. Like, how can we start? What would be a great way to start practicing that, to start adding that into our lives?
Yeah, I think the first place to look is, you know, what is something you haven't been letting yourself do? You know, for anyone listening, what is something you've been wanting to do, but you haven't been letting yourself do because you've been too busy or you've been too involved with something? What is that thing? You know, as far as things go that are like more simple, yeah, it might be making your bed. It might be like, you know, trying out a dance class. It might be going to a comedy show. It might be ordering a meal you've really wanted to try, but you've been too worried about the price. So you go to that restaurant, you don't even look at the price. You just order the meal. You enjoy it. You take your time, you put your phone away and you sit there and you enjoy that meal.
Huge component, that phone.
Yeah. I just like being there, you know. I think there's a lot of small things where we go, you know, maybe I'm going to spend one day a week where I'm just going to give myself compliments. I don't know. There's honestly, there's everywhere. There's so many things.
Right. Just developing that muscle, like starting to look at life through this lens of how can I treat myself better. I love what you said before about that first stage of the process of the coaching process that you take on, and how it's like developing how we want things to look, like how, first of all, developing the partner, like creating the partner that we would want, and then saying like, how would we need to be to attract that? And then when you become really aware of that, you start having these little instances throughout your life, throughout every day, that you can practice that you can build that muscle. Like if I gotta treat myself that way if I want the world to react to me that way.
Because that partner who's looking for someone who's energizing is going to walk right past you and your suffering and your stress. They won't even want to be a part of that conversation. But they see this energized, exuberant person and not forced energized and energized, exuberant because you've been taking a bath, you've been having a massage, you've been getting a good rest. You know, it's just natural. It's like, all of a sudden it can be easy. Would you look at that? Oh my God, suddenly it's getting a little easier. I want more of that. So yeah, it's a practice, and it's okay if we're bad at it for a little while.
Right.
That's okay. Yeah.
That's awesome. This whole thing about getting better at treating ourselves as well as our partner. So once let's talk about within a relationship. Now we've gotten better at this with ourselves. We found a partner that what would be the word, that assimilates that thing that we created, you know what I mean? And now we got that match. How do You're right. How do we get better within the relationship now of treating our partner better, as well as finding that balance of
Yeah.
continuing to treat ourselves better and not, I would think that the natural thing to do would be kind of let go of our own things and start maybe putting ourselves aside a lot of times and being all for them and treating them better and forgetting that how we created this thing in the first place was, creating a certain way that we want to be and finding that
Yeah.
balance.
I'm guilty of that. I'm totally guilty of that.
Mhm.
Putting all my needs aside and then obsessing about the other person. And I mean, since we're talking ball, we'll use the LeBron James quote here. Like, keep the main thing the main thing. And he
Cool.
says that about basketball. He says, keep the
I
main
like
thing the
that.
main thing. That's what made you here. That's what's going to keep
Mhm.
your existence. That's what brings your money to your family. Okay, keep the main thing the main thing. And so the example I would put that in here is your self-care is the main thing. Keep that the main thing. Keep the main thing the main thing, which is your self-care. That is a priority above anything else, including above your partner, which I think many people feel guilty about. Hey, honey, I'm going to go play I'll give you a perfect example. I went to play basketball or golf yesterday, and I messaged my partner and said, hey, I'm playing golf today. And her and I have developed a relationship that she recognizes when I go do things that I like, I'm a better partner for her.
Mhm.
But when I am with her all the time and she's with me all the time, we can easily get annoyed from each other. We get a little impatient. Suddenly we're getting impatient about things that don't even make sense. Why am I impatient about this? Oh,
Right.
because I haven't had some me time. So we've gotten really good at that, but only through a lot of trial and error. Oh, I mean, a
Mhm.
lot. Like, okay, I'm maybe nitpicking at her and she goes, when's the last time you played basketball, honey?
That's
Oh,
dope.
maybe,
That's dope.
maybe this has nothing to do with me, actually. It's
Right. You don't hear
okay.
that on all the dating magazines and the dating shows and the dating apps, like the perfect solution to an argument. Go play some ball. When's the last time you played some ball? When's the last time, whatever
Honestly,
she may
we need
love, you
that.
did yoga or Pilates or something that
Oh
really
man,
makes you feel fulfilled? And like
we
we don't
need
even
that.
think along those terms, right? So it's so
Yeah,
beautiful.
because when we treat ourselves well, we got more to give. I so
Hmm.
believe in that. And I mean, I know the temptation is hard because I think a lot of us struggle with feeling good enough. So
Hmm.
often, if I treat my partner really well, then I'm going to be good enough. If
Hmm.
I work really hard at my job, then I'm going to be
Hmm.
good enough. Not going to happen. That is an endless search with no end to it, because you will
Hmm.
rise to the top and the top of all these things, and you will still be standing there with the trophy in your hand, going, "Why do I still feel not good enough?" Because it's
Right.
not there. That's not where the answer is found. And so, if we can practice this self love, I think I know it's a niche term, it's a catchy term. I don't like to
Right.
fluff it up and make it up, but it's just treating yourself good is good for everybody. That's what I want to like. Saying no to hanging out with your best friend on Friday night because you're tired is good for your best friend too, even though you'd feel
Hmm.
guilty about it, because you're going to show up tired and easily annoyed.
Hmm.
So give yourself that self care. Meet with them on Saturday. They're going
Right.
to appreciate that too. But I think that's a new kind of way of life. I think we're often
Hmm.
like, no, just force it. Just force it. Just show up. Just
Right.
like make it happen.
I
Like,
gotta do it.
like
I gotta do it.
I'll give you another example for me personally. So like talk about something small. My business is going really well. It's starting to get bigger and bigger, and that excites me. And old me would now become an extreme workaholic. I would just go
Hmm.
like, hey, there's opportunity here. Sink your teeth and make the most of the opportunity. New
Hmm.
me is there's always opportunity. There's no rush. Opportunities keep coming. Even when opportunities go away, more opportunities come. That's my mindset now. And so
Right.
I want to maintain that energy. I want to maintain that kind of energetic state. So something that I love to do for my energy is I go to my favorite coffee shop that's just around the corner here, and I go get a cookie and have my favorite coffee, and I go by myself. And my partner Masha, she knows I like to go by myself, so I go by myself and I have my coffee and I watch this YouTube show with Ricky Gervais and Carl Pilkington. It's like brain.
Yes.
There is nothing productive about this whatsoever. It is them talking about like I can't even describe it to you. You'd think it's so ridiculous. But I laugh and I howl and I'm having my treats there, and that is such a self care thing for me. It's such a like, I look
Mm.
forward to it. And it's like, to me, it's so subtle, but this is what makes life
Right.
fun. These little
It's
things,
little
right? These little
things.
things that we
Mhm.
like. And I think a lot of people I talk to, particularly in the Western mentality, it's like, when's the last time you did something you actually really liked?
Mhm.
You know, that I was like, oh, I really like doing this.
Like for no other reason other than
For
just
no other
doing
reason.
it and
It's not
liking it.
for my job.
Right.
It's not for some big thing. I think we're obsessed with like, yeah, trying to do something for something all the time too. What if it was just
Mhm.
because
Like
it
it
feels
needs to
good?
have meaning. It needs to have a purpose. It needs to have a reason. Mhm.
The reason is it feels good. That can
Right.
be it. That is allowed to be it, you know?
Right. Mhm. I love
But we're
that.
in practice.
Right, yeah. That ongoing practice, always coming back to that and knowing. I love what you said too, but I like to call it, there's no finish line. Like when I get to this mountaintop, it's not going to feel any different. The work is within myself. It's not this external thing that I'm going to reach and then I'm going to be like, sigh, I'm perfect. I got it. I did it. Like it's done. It's never
It's
going
not
to be that
happening.
way. Right. And also that thing you said about your best friend, because it even caught me. I'm
Excuse
like,
me.
I wasn't sure if I heard you correctly, and I'm like, yeah, you have to go with your best friend on a Friday. Like you got to take that time and you got to make time for yourself. And I'm like, no, wait, he said like say no to that, and I'm like, hold up, and that like almost automatic thing where it's like, I got to do it, I have to do it, even though I'm tired, and being able to differentiate that and being like, no, it might not be best for them, it might not be best for me. Let's chill, let's sleep a proper good night's sleep and let's do it tomorrow night and really be there. Really, like you said, coming back to that point of I like it. Now I'm enjoying my time with this person. Now I'm enjoying my time with myself. Rather than if I was to do it last night, kind of half-assed and one eye open, like it wouldn't be that same feeling. It would kind of just be going through the motions and learning
Yeah.
to say no sometime. And that's an ongoing practice. And not
Yeah. Feel
everything
like
that
you
comes
have
up
to.
I gotta do, right?
Yeah, like you feel like it. And I think you just said a really key point there, which is a skill to be able to differentiate the two.
Mm-hmm.
Am I doing this because I have to or because I want to?
Mm.
Is what's best for me rest, or is what's best for me going to see that friend? And that we have to really know ourselves to be able to answer that question. I can't answer that for you, and you can't answer it for me.
Right.
Like,
Only we can know the answer, right? Nobody else
yeah,
outside of ourselves can tell us what's right for us.
yeah. Someone working with me goes, "Hey, Simon, can you tell me whether I should rest today or go see my best friend?" No, I can't. I cannot tell you that.
How,
I cannot.
how tired do I look to you? Do I need to sleep tonight or
Yeah,
should I go out? Yeah.
yeah. Well, then, and even if let's say I had an answer, I go, "Okay, go see your friend." It's
Right.
like, well, did you learn anything in that moment? Did you grow in some
Right.
way? No,
That's a
now you're
huge.
depending on me to make your decisions. That's not a good
Mm-hmm.
idea.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Right.
like, and this again, I can't reiterate this enough. We're gonna suck at this.
Yeah.
We're gonna be bad at knowing what we like. It's gonna be new. It's gonna be weird. We're gonna mess it up a few times. We might pick the thing and then go, maybe I should have picked the other thing. It's like, that's okay. That was a
Right.
win because you participated. You
Exactly.
looked.
You did the work. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You weren't on the sidelines expecting things to change. You did the work. You put yourself out there. You did the work, and now you get the lesson on the other side. What it could be, and like you said so precisely, like you could make the wrong choice, and it could be a shitty night. But you did the work. You took the action. You made the choice. And now, next time that situation arises, you're going to be better prepared for it. You're going to be more in tune with what you need.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool. The last thing, I guess, I'd love to touch on, and the sort of clients that you work with and the sort of coaching that you do, I guess it would be that point of like, should we break up? Should we stay together? Where would we be best to put our perspective in those moments where there's that uncertainty of maybe we've been together a long time? Again, what comes up in my mind is that word obligation. I'm obliged to this person. We've been together so long. We've been through so much. But fuck, I'm not happy. Like this isn't coming back to that other point of, am I liking this? Is it good for me? Where would we be best served to put our perspective in those situations and kind of making the right decision, you could call it, moving forward?
Yeah, I think you want to feel good about whatever decision you make, right? If you want to stay in that relationship or you want to walk away from that relationship, you want to feel good about whatever choice it is. I think there's two parts to look here. First one, have I been showing up in the relationship the way I did in the beginning? Or have I changed? I think that's the first thing to look, because everyone's amazing in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you, let's say you're showing up as the gentleman, as the masculine, as the confident guy in the beginning, and then suddenly I get a little bit wavering, maybe I get a bit needy, maybe I get a little bit complaining, lazy, whatever. Okay, well, that's going to have an effect on your partner. So maybe there's something I can work on there. Maybe that's, and maybe I work on that and I have it the way I want it, and I still don't want to be with that person. Okay, great. I'm going to feel good about walking away from that because I did it in a way that had integrity for me.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that first look in the mirror, which I know is an uncomfortable one because
Right.
we're all very justified in how we're acting. If you're acting lazy, but you're also doing it because she's been lazy, and then back and forth, right? That's going to be a circle of a conversation. That's not going to work because we all got our justifications. Yeah, I used to take her out on dates, but she used to dress up more. It's like, okay, maybe you're right, but we're here now. So what are you going to do? You're going to wait for her to dress up more before you take her out on a date, or are you going to be the one and then see what she does?
Taking the action.
So that's the one first place I'd look. Next place I'd look is to recognize who the person is that you're with. Like, who are they really? What have they been like since you've been together? And acknowledge if they didn't change, would you be okay with that? If they didn't change, would you be okay with that? Because they have no obligation to change for you.
Say that again, man. I think that's such a huge sentence, both those parts.
So if they didn't change, would you still want to be with them? Because they have no obligation to change for you. You might want them to change, but that's not their job. That's just what you want.
Right.
And I'm speaking from someone who got back together with my former partner. And I had to really look, okay, how much am I trying to get her to change in a way that she's never agreed to? And first off, why are you trying to get her to change? I thought you loved her. Oh, wait, maybe you just love the version of her you got in your mind about what she could be. That's not her. That's all up here. So you better love her for who she really is or get the fuck out.
Right.
And it was like, okay, who is she really? Yeah, I love her. Okay, what if she doesn't change? She doesn't have to change. If she wants to, she can, but I'm here.
Right.
Suddenly that's a whole different relationship. Right? You can feel that. But this is, and again, I know everybody wants like a black and white, a clear-cut answer.
Right.
You can't skip the knowing yourself part. You can't skip the like really looking and discovering, what's the truth, what's really happening here. Because our minds can play some tricks, man, especially in relationships.
Right. For sure. Where the heart is involved and you're all in.
Woo! Logic goes out the window. We can be our best selves. We can be our worst selves. We can be a version of ourselves we hope no one ever sees. We could be a version of ourselves that's like the greatest step into our potential that's ever been. It's remarkable because that person's going to know us in a way that nobody else knows us in our life. And it might be the first time that's ever happened to us in our whole life. So that's, again, why would we be any good at that? We're going to suck at it. We're going to stumble in our conversations. We're going to be not sure how to say what we want. And so this is why I really have a job, is because it's to help people like, what is it you want to say that you're not sure how? And I ask that question to a lot of people when they're like, how do I say this? Like, I'm scared. I don't want to say. And like, what would you say if you knew they wouldn't react to it? And suddenly the person says exactly what they need to say. Like, I didn't have to do anything.
Repercussion, right? There'd be so dealing with the repercussion and the meaning and whatever the other person's going to reply and forgetting about the actual.
That's what's in the way.
Right.
Yeah, that's all trapping up the words. And then I go, okay, what was the other one? What do you want to say, but you're not sure how? what do you want to say, but you're not sure how? And literally, I say this all the time with my clients. They say exactly what they thought they didn't know how to say. It was like, okay, we'll say that then. You got it.
Usually right away, I believe too. Like if it's there, it's us.
Well, and it's okay though, because in our head, like living in our heads is a shitty place to live. It's not a good place up there. That's why I love. What did you say again? It was not top of mind, top of heart.
Yeah, like when we come up with the subject matter, I always say like what comes to heart, not what comes to
Well, what
mind.
comes to mind? Yeah, what comes to heart? Yeah, because I think we live up here too much.
Right.
But when you go here, suddenly you just can. The words come. You know what you need to say. You know what you want to say. But if you're like, okay, how do I say it the right way? Okay, well, I saw someone on TV say it this way, and then this. Oh, but then when they said that, there was like a bomb that blew off. Okay, maybe don't do it. It's like, dude, get here.
Right.
Bring your heart here. But that's, again, that's trained. It's like kids, 4-year-olds are great at it. And then we fuck it up like for a while after that.
Somewhere along the way, we started.
We put that tool down and we learned about a bunch of other shit.
I love that's honestly like what comes to mind is those before we end up here those shows where they were like fifth graders or whatever, like fifth graders say the darndest things or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Anything you ask that kid, boy, girl, doesn't matter. That's from the heart. You know what I mean?
That's
like
fucking,
no
it's
other
straight. It's immediate. Everyone can resonate with it.
Right. Just human, just a human being at its finest, like coming straight from the heart, no other filter involved. Whatever you ask that kid, he's giving you the straight up. You may not like it, but he's giving you whatever is going on in his or her heart at that moment.
Yeah, it's not canned at all, and that's why it's always so like for the viewers so charming or entertaining or funny because it's just
It's almost like we forgot what those responses look like and coming back to that point, like if I love that point of those two sentences were huge. Like how do we say it? Like if you could say whatever you wanted right now, what would it look like? And the other part of like there's no obligation for your partner to change for you. Those things is huge.
Man, that's such a gift to give your partner. If I could offer that to all your listeners right now, give your partner that they don't have to change anything about themselves. That doesn't mean you have to stay with them, but let them off the hook. Right. They have to change anything about themselves. Isn't that what we all want? Don't I want to feel like I'm enough? Well, if you think I need to change, well, then clearly I'm not enough. And most partnerships are walking around in that context. I'm not good enough. Oh, really? You think you're not good enough? I thought I was not good enough. And they're both just walking around their lives, trying to be good enough for each other. And it's like, let's drop the obligations here. Honey, you want to go with your girls, have a blast. You know, and you know what's funny? We started to do that a lot more, me and my partner. Next thing he goes, actually, I really want to stay home with you. What a choice. Let's go on this trip together. Not like, oh, we haven't been on a trip together. We should go on a trip. No. I'm like in the mood to be with you. Versus, I should probably be with you because we've been
like I need to do this, right?
Yeah, this is what people do who are in a relationship.
It's 3 months. We're 3 months in. We got to go do ABCD. Like, then it's authentic. That's what I'm hearing about it. That's what I'm hearing about it. It's just super authentic. It's super coming from who we are and what we want and how we want to show up. That's huge, man. I love that. The last two things, we could talk for hours, man. I'm sure.
I know we could.
The last two things I always love to end up on is the first is how do you define performance or success?
For myself personally?
Yeah, for you, through Sai.
Okay. How do I define performance for myself? I think I'll consider myself a high performer when I'm really trusting in my abilities. You know, when I really trust myself and I can look back and be proud of what I've done and how I've supported people. I think the performance in my life will be measured by the impact I have on my family members and on the relationships I get to coach. I think that's how I will measure my performance. That my family members feel like they don't have to change anything about themselves, and that my clients feel the same way. That everyone just feels loved. That's how I would measure my performance.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Thanks for asking that.
I love that. Thanks for that comment, that answer, man. Again, it's authentically you. Yeah, for sure. For Sai, I'm here with Sai. I want to hear. Yeah, that's awesome.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
So I'm fascinated by courage, and you and I are talking about fear-facing work, and so I always love to ask people about courage in a way that also gets them to celebrate themselves. So, where in the last day, month, year have you been courageous that you're really proud of?
I think it's not to tip my own hat, but there's been so many. Like I've completely, we talked about a little bit, and it gets me emotional just thinking about it. Like I've completely jumped in the water with this thing. Gives me goosebumps just thinking about like where I was 3 months ago and where it is now and where it could be in the future and the positive influence it could have on so many people in the future. Every podcast, every episode, every conversation, every posting things we were talking about before too, about putting ourselves out there and doing those posts that really like show an insight into our personal lives. I think that takes something to do, and all these things I would never imagine myself like to have the courage to do. And now it's like we said before, like I live in my heart a lot of the time. I don't live in my head, and there's all the reasons. I always say there's a million reasons not to do it. Focus on that one reason why you do it, and be with that context and come from there. And yeah, it really excites me. And I give myself a lot of credit, to take that plunge, to put myself in uncertain situations, not knowing what it's going to be like. But I always come back to that point of, and maybe it touches on what we talked about before, of like being for another person and the positive impact that it may have. And who knows, man? Who knows who will watch this? Who knows who will listen to this? I always have this sort of strange feeling before an episode or where we come up with subject matter that this is the right thing right now. Like somebody somewhere needs this. I don't know how it will come about. I don't know who would touch. And then all those thought processes of why not do it? Why not take that step? All that fear kind of takes a back seat. Still there, like we said, it's always going to be
Still there. Yeah, in different degrees, right?
Yeah.
Like you, for your first episode to your 32nd, you said this is?
Yeah, this is 31. Yeah.
Okay. I imagine it's different, isn't it?
Oh, for sure. I can tell you like lives, for example, going on lives, I would do lives by myself with a little whiteboard. And that's how I kind of got started. And that first one, man, that's one of the scariest things I've ever done in my life. And I remember, I don't think I've shared this with a lot of people, but I remember after driving to practice or driving to an event or something and crying from joy, man. That like letting go, that feeling of letting go of that fear. Like that fear doesn't have a hold on me anymore. I've broke through that glass ceiling and I did that thing that's most scary. And on the other side of doing those things that seem the scariest to us is this great freedom now to create and to do what we want.
Yes. Hell yeah,
sure,
man.
Yeah,
that's
man,
cool.
100%. I love that question.
Cool. Yeah, well, you've been. I wanted you to share. I wanted to hear what you had to share about.
I appreciate that.
It sounds like you've had a ton of different experiences that you brought courage to. And what's cool to me about courage is it's exponential. It's not like going to the gym where you have to go 60 days. It's like you might have an 100%. Act of courage in today, and next week do 10 times whatever that act was. And so if you're on this journey that you've really sunk your teeth in, particularly in the last 3 months, I would be so curious to hear what's like a year from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, because it multiplies. It doesn't add.
Right. 100%.
So good for you, man.
Yeah,
that's cool.
I appreciate it. Yeah, man. And the last thing, I really appreciate that question. That was awesome. That was a great moment. The last thing I always like to touch on is if you could kind of catch Sai when he first started doing this whole coaching thing, or maybe it's with ball or whatever you may choose to take it. But I think the relationship coaching is really intriguing. And you can kind of pull, like right in the beginning when you first got into it, and you can kind of pull him aside and maybe whisper a few things in his ear that would help him go through this process that he's about to embark on with maybe less headaches and less anxiety or whatever it may be. What would you tell him?
You're doing better than you think. I'd just say, hey man, you're doing better than you think. You got time. It's happening. And that you got a lot to offer, and it's okay that people haven't seen that yet, because you're doing better than you think. Yeah.
That's awesome. That comes to that, I guess, that comparison of like where we should be, what it should look like.
Suffered a lot. I've suffered a lot there myself. Yeah, it's been a long practice of eliminating the shoulds out of my vocabulary, because I lived in should. What I should have done, what I shouldn't have done, what I should be doing now to be like that person, or what it was. Oh, that's the pathway to exhaustion right there.
That's cool. You're doing better than you think. I love that. It's such a small sentence, but it has so many components in that.
Because even when you say like, and I'm serious, man, I'm living a life that I dreamed of 3 years ago, and 3 years is not a long time.
Right, for sure. People forget that. Yeah.
That's a short amount of time. So if
sure.
that's in 3 years, what's it going to be like in 10?
100%.
You know, it's like you got time. And I struggle with this with Huntington's disease. I know we didn't talk about that all, and that's fine. But I used to be in a big rush for everything. And I think a lot of people are, because they feel behind, or they're comparing themselves to someone who's younger than them and doing something they think is better. It might not even not be, by the way. What you're watching might not be actually what's happening with that person.
Right.
But it's like, you do it. It's okay. Your pace is okay. It's your pace. You know, if your dream happens at 39, who gives a shit? It's your dream. Or 42 or 56 or who cares? Like, if you're playing that game, if you're leaning into that fear, who gives a shit? Like, you're playing the game. That's so cool. It's so cool. And that's the fun of it all anyway.
Right.
Excuse me.
That's huge.
Yeah.
I love that, man. What a way to end off too.
Yeah, man.
That's
Great
amazing,
conversation.
Man.
Thank you so much for having me on, Sean.
I appreciate you, man. And I acknowledge you for all the work that you're doing and the type of person you are, man. And it's been really exciting, and it's been an amazing conversation, and all the positive impact that you have on people, you know, beyond just the people you get to work with, but the people I'm sure experience you throughout life and get to know you better. And I always say, like, beyond the podcast and beyond the episode, it's always amazing just getting to know a friend on a deeper level. And getting to know the person. And I'd love to do an episode on Huntington's disease and what we talked about, communication. We'll set that up for sure.
I would love to too. Thank you so much for sharing that. It's a privilege to be on with you, and I receive everything you just shared. And I want to also just acknowledge you for this mission that you're on, you know, for the difference you're going to make in all the people you work with and all these kids. You know, I bet that I wish I had someone like you when I was younger, so that I didn't have to wait till my 5th year of university to have that confidence. So thank you for what you're doing, and thank you for the ways that you're being courageous that no one sees.
I appreciate that, man. I'm laying that in. That's awesome, man. I'm already looking forward to our next one, and we'll have to stay in touch. And I mean, who knows if we'll get together in Bali or in Canada or in Israel.
Oh,
man,
I'd love that.
We'll get it done. We'll get it done for sure.
Sounds good, brother.
It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for having me.
I appreciate it. Have a good one out there.
Love.
Thanks. Appreciate you, man. We'll talk soon.
Sounds good, brother.
Later, man.